Hey, it's your close personal friend, Lou Brutus, the host of the world famous Hard Drive, and of course, its weeknight companion show, Hard Drive XL. Now, coming up in this segment, you are going to see me squawking and talking with three fairly magnificent rock stars: Andy Biersack of Black Veil Brides, Matt Heafy of Trivium, and Slash, who is going to tell us about the brand new tune he's got with Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. Before we start, just want to remind you, hit like, hit subscribe, comment, do all that stuff that helps spread our rock and roll gospel. And with that being said, here I am with Slash. Enjoy. When I first heard about the title of the new single from you with Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators, I thought of my late father, because whenever I would ask him, "Hey, Dad, how are things going?" he would always say, "We're living in River City and the river is rising."
Really?
And it always sounded rather ominous. So tell me all about the tune and how it came to be.
Well, I mean, the song, it's sort of a long story. We did a lot of writing, as we always do while we're touring. So a lot of this record was written during the Living the Dream tour. So during the pandemic, I went in and I started demoing up some of it. What we do is we'll work on a song at sound check, and I'll record it, through the board, and I'll compile all that stuff. So I started putting together demos for this record during the pandemic and got all the material together and everything. And then right before we started pre-production, I wrote the music for Rivers Rising and sent it to Miles, and he got the chorus together, and it all came together. And it was the first thing that we just started doing in pre-production. And I said, I had a lot of new material as well written for I guess the next record, but this was the newest song that I'd written at the time, and I just decided to put this one on this record. So that's where it came from. So it's actually the newest song on the record as far as when it was written. And Rivers Rising is sort of self-explanatory. It's a general statement about how things are.
Yeah, that's how my dad meant it, which is exactly, once I heard things, it turned out, and it's got sort of a almost punky vibe to it.
The way that we recorded this record is everything was just done live in the studio, and it's very spontaneous.
And when you say live in the studio, does that mean you're going to do vocals later, but essentially the core band stuff is all done as a unit?
No, this is actually the most live I've recorded so far. I've always done the bass, drums, and guitars live in the studio, bar none. I've never, except for when I do other people's sessions, but when in any band that I've worked in, it's always been like that. But you come back and you do guitars later, because you want to get the right sound, and you go into the control room and you do the guitars from in there. And a lot of the reason is because you can't have the amps in the room when you're recording the drums. The producers hate that because they don't want to bleed. And I don't give a shit, but I have never been able to find a producer that could deal with it. So you just sort of bite the bullet and you do it, where you do the guitars later. And vocals are always done after that. This one was done with the amps in the room, with the drums, and Miles singing all at the same time. So that's how this record was done.
So that's about as old school as things can get nowadays, without actually just diving into vintage gear.
Studio A, RCA studio. Chet Atkins' old studio in Nashville, with Dave Cobb, who the reason I wanted to work with Dave Cobb was because he and I had both had this fantasy about doing a rock and roll record live in the studio with everybody in the same room at the same time. And when he and I discussed that and he was into doing it, I said, let's do this. So that's how we hooked up with Dave Cobb. But we did it in this great room, which, all things with all due respect to every other producer that I've ever worked with, this was one of the only rooms where you can get away with having the guitars, the amps, and the drums in the same room.
Slash, when you walk into a room like that has this palpable sense of history to it, do those places, along with having a particular sound to them, do you pick up on the vibes of a place like that?
Yeah, there's when you go into a place where there's just a history of great musicians making great historical music, music that's lasted for decades and decades, and influential music. And that all these different cats that come in here and record it in these hallowed halls kind of thing. I mean, Steve Cropper's office is right upstairs. I mean, it's just the fucking coolest. And you've got pictures, you know, like candid shots of all these different artists all over the walls. And they're like people that you really respect. I mean, they got pictures of Willie Nelson from before he had a beard. You know, I mean, you got fucking, you know, fuck, why am I spacing out? It's just, you know, all these different famous artists that I've grown up admiring, and they all worked in this particular room. And this goes back, you know, back to the 50s, or like actually the 60s for this particular room. So it's just a great environment. Yeah, it's inspiring.
Ever see any ghosts or spirits in any of these places?
I hadn't seen any ghosts. Johnny Cash, that's who I was trying to think of. I was like, I couldn't believe I couldn't think of his name for a second. Anyway, no, I didn't see any ghosts or spirits in any of the places, but I did see some crazy fucking country album covers that, you know, they had some in the bathroom that you would just sit there taking a, you know, stand there taking a piss and then staring at them. And some of these pictures are really funny. I had to take pictures of them and take them home.
Do you ever think of yourself in the context of that stuff? Like someday someone's going to be standing here taking a piss, looking at my picture on the wall?
No. I, you know, you never sort of have that kind of perspective on yourself, you know. At least I don't. I'm not able to do that.
You know, you mentioned Miles before, who, for my money, is one of the best musicians on the planet.
Yeah.
Tell me about this guy and just what makes him so fucking good.
Well, I mean, he's just a great musician. He's got a massive passion for music, and I mean, you know, it for me, it's one of the things that he's just a fantastic guitar player to begin with, and then on top of that, he's just got this amazing voice and this amazing range, and he's just a pleasure to work with. I mean, I started working with him off the cuff when I did a solo record in 2010. And he came in and sang a couple songs. And I was like, wow, this guy's fucking awesome. And at that time, I was trying to figure out how I would find one singer who could sing all the songs that I was going to do on that tour, which sort of encapsulated pretty much my whole career up to that point. And I thought, you know, out of all the people that I met, Miles is the one guy that I think could actually do that. And that's how we sort of started working together touring wise. And that's basically where the Conspirators started. And we've just been working ever since. And this band's really cool because it's a very simple band. All we do is write music, get together, record it, and go out and play. There's really nothing else to it, you know. And that's rare.
Well, you know what? The last time we spoke, I think we were both commenting about how the matching seems so perfect for you guys in this moment and Dead. Now that the reality is out there, how's it been working?
Oh boy, I mean, this has been an incredible tour. And I mean, obviously the grouping of the bands, everybody's crews, everybody's getting along so well, but also just the very fact that all of us have been stuck at home for the last 18 months. And now we're out there and we're playing in these places, and, you know, you're walking out and seeing human faces singing along to rock music. It's a pretty unparalleled thing. And for all of us to have that reset of the last 18 months to where, you know, for any of us who are road dogs tour 8-10 months of the year, you can get burnt out. That's all gone. At this point, there's just such a level of excitement. And, you know, I was actually commenting on it. One of the more interesting things I was talking to somebody this morning about was, when you are isolated because of the COVID protocols and everything else that the whole tour is on, there's no seeing an old buddy or whatever it is. Your whole day is the show. You go to bed early, you wake up fairly early, you get ready for the show. Like it's an interesting way of doing it. And I think it's actually breeding better shows, because all of us on this tour, our sole focus is every night coming out and giving everybody the best show possible, and everybody is taking care of their health. All three bands on the tour are doing a great job of that, and it's been a wonderful experience, Lou, all the way around.
When I made my first real trips out for rock and roll things in July and continuing through now, the one thought that kept coming into my head was, Man, it's so fucking weird to be out again. It's so
Sure.
weird to be
Yeah.
out again. Do you ever get that vibe as you're, just going about your day?
The first show was in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I didn't feel anything weird until the intro tape started rolling. And then me and my lead guitar player, Jake, and I were looking at each other and we were like, wow, this is the first time, we've been doing this for a while. It's not to say you don't have excitement, but you don't have, with thousands of shows, you're not feeling like stage fright or nerves to that capacity. And we were genuinely going, oh shit, we're about to go out on stage. You know what I mean? Like that feeling of this is about to happen again. And then three shows in, it's like riding a bike. You're back out there. The only thing is now, sometimes you're in a situation where you're looking out at a crowd full of people that are masked up or whatever else. So there's visual reminders, of the different times that we're in. But by and large, for me, I've been sober 6 years. My days are getting up fairly early, getting some emails done, working on comic book stuff, trying to work out, eat healthy, and then play a rock show. So my day is ostensibly the same as it was in 2019, except for, now when we meet fans, it's 6 feet apart.
Isn't it amazing how much you can get done when you're not hungover?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality is for me, I like it because for me, I especially record release time, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff. This is record release week that we're recording this right now. My inbox is full in the morning. So if I get up early, it can attack the day early. By the time it's time to rock, I don't got to think about any of that stuff.
And I would think, any time is a great time for a new Black Veiled Brides record. However, it just seems so awesome to have it released for Halloween weekend. When you saw it was going to be in that sort of section of the calendar, you guys must have just thought, bing, and the idea went on over your heads, right?
Yeah. We were originally going to put this thing out in the summer, and then we were told by people who know a lot more than we do that the pandemic had made it so production basically didn't exist. You wouldn't be able to get CDs, vinyl, comic book wouldn't be printed in time, merchandise wouldn't be made in time. The only way you could put it out is just digitally. And we thought, while we understand that it's a predominantly digital world, that is not what we love about making a record. Is the cover art and the lyrics and the tangible stuff. And it just didn't feel like a proper release. Plus, we felt that there was still more we could do to really perfect the record. So we found out that, okay, well, you could release it at the end of October. And we said, yes, perfect. We're going to be on tour. It's right around Halloween. Like, what could be better? And my mom's birthday is on Halloween. So I told her it's a birthday present.
Oh man, Halloween for you growing up must have been insane.
Well, Halloweens were normal for me, and my mom's birthday was depressing for her because admittedly, my Halloween as a little kid, she took back seat to my Halloween. So it was her birthdays were celebrated taking a little Batman around the neighborhood getting candy.
Were you Batman every year? I would imagine you were.
Some years I was Sting from WCW or Gene Simmons, and then I was Batman. So basically 3 sides of the same coin, so to speak.
Now, which Batman were you? What era Batman, though?
Always Keaton. That was always I guess one year I was the Val Kilmer era. But yeah, I mean, I was a little kid in the early 90s. So my Batman is Michael Keaton.
Adam West for me. He's just, and
sure.
I know that's a sort of sacrilegious Batman to some real hardcores, but he just lived it and breathed it.
No, the truth be told, my dad was a huge fan of the show, and that was actually my introduction to the character. So we had a VHS copy of the 66 movie before I had anything else. So my first real introduction to a live action Batman was Adam West. So I have a very, very deep love of the Adam West Batman.
Whatever happened to the shark from that one? Did anyone save that prop shark? That
the bat repellent shark spray?
Well, either that off the belt or the actual shark, like the rubber shark that they stuck on the end of his foot, however the hell they did it.
I wonder what happened to that prop. Actually, recently, this is probably about 2 years ago, we were somewhere on tour and we were doing a meet and greet, and somebody came up to me and said, hey, I have like 3 or 4 of the penguins from the 92 movie, and they're real props from the movie. Would you be interested in buying them? And I was like, hell yeah, give me those penguins. And then they gave me their information. I never heard back from them again. I was like, this is bullshit. Got my hopes up. I wanted to buy those penguins.
You know what? You're about the only guy, and I talk to hundreds of fascinating men and women. You're the only one in these thousands of conversations I've had that has said, I've got to get those penguins.
Yeah, I got to buy those penguins, Lou. I needed decayed, old, 30-year-old props.
If you're going to make rock star money, spend it on rock star shit. That's my motto, So
like penguins.
Let's talk about In the Court of the Dragon, because when I first heard the title and when I first started seeing little bits and pieces, I thought, holy fuck, Trivium is making a Dungeons and Dragons album. And I'm like, that might be the greatest. It's not really, but that's where my mind first went.
That's great.
Tell me about this record and the accompanying visuals with it too.
Thank you. Yeah, for us and for me, that's how the collaboration of video games and metal has come to me. I've always felt that metal and video games have been for the underdog. And I've always felt that the people that are into those two things are into that fantasy stuff. They're into the fantasy realm, whether Roman looking or Greek looking or Japanese looking, Viking looking, whatever it may be. And for us, a lot of the bands we grew up on, like the Swedish melodic death metal scene from the 90s, bands like At the Gates and Dark Tranquillity, or being into some of the greats, you look at Dio, Rainbow, they would go into that stuff and using the fantasy as whether a metaphor or a direct telling. It was really up to the listener. So for us, we have had painted records before. And for me, when we were making this record, I said, this sounds so grand that we need someone like Caravaggio. We need someone like the 17th century masters to make this. I scoured the internet and I found an amazing painter named Matthew out of the countryside of France. We hit him up, gave him the title, told him it was inspired by the Chambers short story of The Yellow King, which is a whole nother batch of great information and inspiration that we're able to pull from. And we said, here's the lyrics, go for it. What are you going to make? He spent 4 months and made this incredible painting. It's about to be in Orlando finally. It's being shipped over from Birmingham. So we had him make this. We had it photographed by an incredible UK photographer named Ryan Macfall. We just had it brought into Birmingham where it was the feature, like a mini art gallery. The thing sold out. We had Malevolence, Silosis, Tesseract, and Surgeon all play acoustic sets there. It was all Trivium fans and press and PR and magazines all there for the listening of the record and to see the painting. And it was so amazing to have that happen in the birthplace of heavy metal, nevertheless, in Birmingham, where we had a Trivium beer come out for that night. It's being shipped back over here. And we're doing the same thing down the block at Red Light in Orlando as well. Here's the painting. Let's drink some Trivium beer. Let's listen to the record and just celebrate life, celebrate all the good things. But the record is back to celebration. It's the celebration of everything that we are. If I look at this record incredibly hypercritically, I feel that it's the best combinations of everything from records 1 through 9 on one album. It's the synopsis of what Trivium is. And to be on record 10 and to have critics say, this very well may be the best Trivium song, if not record. To have people say that on record 10 is nuts. That's the kind of thing people talk about records 1 to 3. It was like, oh, their old stuff's the best. But now to hear this about the song In the Court of the Dragon, or the record as a whole, has been a really fantastic thing. And it's the last 3 have been that. It's let's make whatever we want. And I feel like each one has summarized our career at the point, because records 1 through 7 are vastly different. I feel like if you were to try to introduce someone to Trivium, it's kind of hard. You have to pick what mood might apply to them from those 1 to 7 records. But record 8, 9, and 10 have the summary of everything before it. And that's what this is for us.
I'm going to throw some song titles at you. If you would give me like a brief synopsis of each tune and any sort of insight. First, of course, Feast of Fire.
Feast of Fire. It's amazing. I feel like it's a direct lineage of songs like Die in Your Arms, Until the World Goes Cold, The Heart from Your Hate, the ones that are great gateway entries into our band. We've always loved big melody. From record 1, we've had super catchy singing, and we've also had the super brutal stuff, and we like to have it all. And I feel like Feast is the best we've ever done that vein of Trivium. It's the best we've ever done that style of Until the World Goes Cold, of Die in Your Arms, of Endless Nights. So it's awesome. That heavy part gets everyone breaking their neck live. And this song was very fun for us live on this last run, because we'd start it and people wouldn't know it. And by the last chorus, everyone was singing along. And that's always a good sign.
That's the mark of a great song, by the way. And I've said that 1,000 times in my life. If you hear a song and you start singing along with the chorus, the first time you're hearing the chorus, that's a good fucking song.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Another tune would be In the Court of the Dragon, title track.
In the Court of the Dragon, this one summarizes everything that Trivium is in one song in a very intense way. It's angry. It has the double chorus thing. And it's got the in wave style chorus of a screamed chorus, but then it has the melodic sung chorus that comes in later. I love the emphasis on juxtaposition we did in this song. The chorus is beautifully sung with blast beats on the drums. So it sounds like a machine gun underneath pretty singing, which I like. It has a little bit of everything. If I try to analyze this song, I feel like it sounds like Ember, it sounds like Ascendancy, but also sounds like Shogun. It's got a little bit of everything that is Trivium on the extremities.
One more tune, The Phalanx. Tell me about that.
Phalanx, what's amazing about this track is we actually wrote this for our fourth record. Our fourth record, Shogun, is hailed in the same esteem as Ascendancy. People say it's Ascendancy or Shogun or In Waves are the best of all time, the classic greats. And we had a couple extra songs. Silence of the Snow was actually written for Shogun. The Phalanx was written for Shogun. Silence of the Snow obviously appeared its head around record 7, but the Phalanx is one we couldn't figure out the middle section. We had the first act and we had the third act, but the middle section was one that we took out and gave to Torn Between Scylla and Charybdis off Shogun. So we had this floating around, and one day Paulo said, hey, let's bring the Phalanx back. Let's bring it back. Let's work on this. Let's see what we can do with the middle. Instantly came with the middle, and what's amazing, one of the greatest games of all time, Elder Scrolls released their Elder Scrolls Online version, the new chapter. They hit us up. They said, hey, let's collab. Let's make the video for Phalanx essentially Elder Scrolls Online, and it worked perfectly. Just like you said earlier, that kind of Dungeons and Dragons vibe, that Tolkien vibe, that Lord of the Rings vibe. We're able to make a full-on video with video game CGI into it from a game that I grew up playing with our song. So it's amazing seeing these worlds mesh. I never thought these things would go together, but the Phalanx is awesome. The Phalanx is, for any Shogun era diehard of Trivium, they are super excited about Phalanx right now.
That was not only a great answer, you taught me the correct pronunciation of phalanx, because my entire life I thought it was phalanx. You know,
all good.
Reading up on Roman battles and stuff, I just didn't know. Well, now
I hope
I
I'm
know.
right. I might be wrong, because like what's funny is I say Charybdis in our song Torn Between Scylla and Charybdis, but it's actually Charybdis. So I said it wrong in the song and screamed it wrong. So I could be wrong, but I think it might be Phalanx.